Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at Assimilate. Now this deck isn't really different than the meta list. There might be like a 1 or 2 card substitution from what you guys have either been playing or have seen played, but I figure I want to showcase something that's incredibly strong for the end of the season and going into the next season. So if you guys are looking to get to pro rank or you're looking to grind a little bit harder next season and you want to start off very strong, this is something that I'd recommend. Now, Nilfgaard recently received a couple nerfs affecting Terra Nova and Brathens. They were both 1 provision nerfs, as well as Coup de Grace, which used to be 9 provisions, now 10, so another provision nerf there. So I don't anticipate they're going to be doing anything as far as balance changes that's going to be affecting double cross Assimilate anytime soon, so that's why I recommend maybe this being a good deck to finish with and start with next season if you're just looking to play through. Now let's go over what Assimilate is. Assimilate essentially means boost self by 1 of the specified amount whenever you play a card that's not from your starting deck. So what we're looking to do is get out all these cards that have the Assimilate tag on them first. So we have Terra Nova, Brathens, we have the Artorias, and Glynis is an exception that has Assimilate 2. So not only is it boosting once, it's boosting twice every time we play a card that's not from our starting deck. So huge value here that requires an answer, otherwise we just get an enormous amount of points. And then you have Mage Torture with Assimilate as well. So these are the ones we want to get out there as quick as possible, right? And then we want to make copies of cards. We have plenty cards that make copies of their cards and create and plays from their faction and whatnot that we'll get into, which are going to help ultimately proc those. So it's a good balance of engines, control, and just versatility. We have the flexibility when we're creating cards or copying cards to sort of do what we need to do at any given time. I think that in order to be successful playing Assimilate, you need to understand your matchups quite thoroughly. So in the games today, I have 4 games for you guys there, and they were recorded in order, and we won all 4, and it's because I understood the matchups. I played against these decks many times, so I was able to optimize what we're copying and what we're doing as far as interfering with their strategy. So for now, we'll get into the cards. We have our Toad Terra Nova, and this card has the Assimilate tag as mentioned, and on deploy we spawn and play a base copy of any non-disloyal unit you gave spine to during this game, excluding self. So that's really important because we're creating and playing arguably their best card, so we want to see some good commitments before we go and we play this card, right? This will generally be around 3 card that we play, or if we're going for a 2-0, maybe we try and play that in round 2. But in order to have Terra Nova work, we have to go and we have to play the Mage Torturer, because this card here is going to give us the ability to give something spying. So if we don't do that first, and if we don't have Mage Torturers in hand, we can always make a copy of them with the Artode Vigo. It basically rolls and creates a bronze, random one from our deck, but we have a few choices, and that would be our last effort to get the Mage Torturer. But if we don't get that, this card doesn't play for much. It just acts as a 4 power card that has Assimilate, which would ultimately play like a 4 provision card, right? So you want to make sure that you do give spying just to make sure that this works out. And a lot of the other versions that are going around have Joachim, and playing against Assimilate, I've ran into matchups where the opponent would take a Joachim in round 1 after they've played the Yan Calviet, and then they'd pull out Terra Nova and it would play for nothing. So that's a problem, right? And I think that having more control options is able to solve that problem. We don't go as tall for ourselves, but we also prevent, big things from happening on their side of the board. So makes a big difference there. Now, if you're finding a problem giving spying and you really want to focus on that and consistency, there is an argument to take out Glynis here and to put back in Fercart. I think that would be fine, but what makes this deck really competitive with the meta right now is the greed that it has in this range here, with Tourney Shelmar getting the buff and Glynis being viable to contend with a lot of these greedy decks. It just makes more sense. So by swapping these, you're getting consistency in your spying and in your draws, but you're losing points. So use your discretion there. I didn't have a problem playing it as it was today, but that's a possible substitute. Brathen's, regardless of whether it was nerfed or not, it's still incredibly powerful. And this card, of course, has the Assimilate tag. On deploy, creates and plays a bronze disloyal unit from our starting deck. So we have 3. We have 1 to either copy a bronze of theirs. We have 1 that's going to be boosting one of our allies by 7. And we have 1 that's going to be damaging adjacent enemy units by 3, and on death blow moves self to the opposite row. So we get the card back if we can trigger a death blow. So if we're playing into maybe Saskia or something where we need to remove engines, Mage Infiltrators are a really good copy. If we're playing into the Pirates matchup specifically and control decks and whatnot, I really like copying their bronze engines, or like their bronze damage cards is what I'm trying to say, with the Duchess. And if we're playing into a big boosty deck where we don't have to worry about hard resets or heat waves and stuff like that, the Emissary is really nice to have just for that extra point swing and proactivity. This card is often played if we don't have anything to interact with on their side of the board, which is why it's included here, right? And you want to make sure you don't boost your tallest unit, boost something low, so that if it does get answered, at least you can spread out the points a little bit. So that would be what I'd recommend there. Mage Infiltrator also really helps set up our coup. If we don't have something with spying, we can actually just use the coup to kill it, and then basically play it that way as well, which is quite nice, because most cards kind of are in that 4 to 6 base power range, so it sets up quite nicely. Mushy Truffle's great because it procs Assimilate. It helps keep things alive on our side of the board, because a lot of the engines that we spawn from the Illusionist, this card brings out a bronze card from their grave, sets the power to 1, bonded it doesn't. But there's some healing that's required there, because we're going to bring out a 1 power unit, so that alongside with, you know, the Illusionist here to keep it alive so that we can get the bonded, it really helps keep things going. So this whole combination's very strong, and if you don't have these cards, definitely worth a craft, because right now they're very universal when it comes to playing Nilfgaard in general. You could put this package in just about any Nilfgaard deck and see success with it. It helps with the soldier tag that we have as well on it, so definitely try it out. Jan Calviet, one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite card from 9.6. It really helps solve a lot of problems that Nilfgaard was facing, and it continues to be one of my favorite cards from Nilfgaard in 10.1. So this just sorts our deck from highest to lowest provisions, so we can guarantee what we're going to draw for the rest of the game. We know what we're getting, so this can be a good thing for us, this could be a bad thing for us. If we're playing against Mill, it's probably the worst thing that we can do. If we're playing and we want to 2-0 a deck or really push to get something out and we want to top deck really nicely, then this could be the best thing ever, right? I try to play this once I've established some round control, or if we just have no proactivity in hand, it's something good we can play first. But oftentimes I'll save it and I'll play it round 2 on a dry pass, or round 2 right before I'm looking to get out, because I want to have some bronze cards to cycle out as well. And I also want to naturally pull into Illusionists if possible, so it'd be nice to get 1 or 2 of these, right, in hand. And if we sort our deck out the first turn of the game from top to bottom, then that could be actually a problem for us, because then we don't get some of these cards that we need, like the Mage Infiltrators to set up the Terra Nova, and the Illusionists to just get a bunch of value. So again, use this wisely. It's not always the best play to play it first, and I just feel like one punish is not enough. 2 is good, and Yen's a really good second one there, because we could take a card from their side of the board, put it at the top of our deck, and we can, if we do this like early round, maybe round 1, round 2, we can play this card in round 3 and proc Assimilate, so it works out quite well in that way. Obviously you can't do anything with the Heatwave, it banishes the unit, so it's nice that we actually get the extra value from it here. And moving on to Lydia, this has got to be one of the best cards that you can put in Nilfgaard right now, and I'm actually tempted to throw it in decks that aren't even Assimilate because of just the value that it provides. So create and play a bronze special from your opponent's faction on melee or on range from the graveyard. So if they have something that you really want to play from their graveyard, then just play it on ranged. If you want a high roll or they don't have any bronze specials in their grave, just put it on melee, otherwise it won't work, right? And this is going to proc Assimilate with that card that we create. And if we create a card that creates a card, then we're getting double procs of Assimilate. So it works out quite well. Artorias Vigo here, I always try to look for a spy, because spies start off at 1 base power, right? If I'm absolutely desperate, maybe it's round 3, we just need points. We'll go for the Blightmaker if we miss that combo. But usually it's just going to be a spy. And another desperation attempt would be something like the Mage Torturer. And I actually don't mind Illusionist all that much, but under no circumstance you're really going to copy like an Assassin. But yeah, preferably I go Spies here. Illusionist could be the most points, but generally speaking, you want the Spy. And we talked about Glynis just being good points and substitution example. The Tourney Shelmar is pretty good because a lot of people are going to be playing Nilfgaard right now, and a lot of people are going to be running this card. So if we don't run this card, we're in a disadvantage off the bat when we go into the matchup, because they have a really cheap card to damage Nilfgaardian enemy by 7, right? So they can remove something of ours. So 7 damage plus 4 base power for 6 provision. It's just a good value. But if we have it on range and we don't play against Nilfgaard, we get to boost self by 2 for each allied from a different faction. So if you go in and you play your Vigo and your Terra Nova and all that type of stuff, your Illusionists, and then you go like in your Diplos, and then you go and you play this, right? This is going to get crazy value. Now, I don't mind playing this in round 1 or round 3. In round 3, if we have Last Say, sure, it's great to play it. If we don't have Last Say, or we feel that we're not going to have Last Say, I would risk maybe taking this early round 1, because at the end of the day, it's a 6 provision card. And if this sees a Heatwave, then a lot of other things just work. So don't be worried about making this count for 20 points or something like that. That's not really the idea, in my opinion. And for consistency reasons and just tempo in early game, we want to get out the Blightmakers. Now, the nice thing about it is with the Yan Calviate, we don't brick the Mage Assassins nearly as much as we used to, because it sorts the deck, but I still want to get out Blightmakers early just because it helps us win round 1 so that we can go into round 2 or 3 or whatever the case with a much stronger hand. So if you think about the point potential from playing a couple Blightmakers, couple Spies, and a Tourney Joust early on, you can imagine that this is just very powerful. It's hard to keep up with. So that's the reasoning for it there. Talked about Mage Torture just giving spying its sole purpose. This is going to be a proc for Assimilate, and it's also a tactic. One thing you got to keep in mind for Calviate too is you need a certain amount of tactics in the deck to make it work, because this card is going to be bumped up in our deck for every tactic that we have. So we've got the 1 here, 2, 3, 4, right? So I wouldn't go any less than 4. I think 3 or less is just going to be bad. The sweet spot I find is around 5 or 6. But in this version, we want to greed out the mid-range, so we don't have the room for that, though. If I was going to put something else in, like, another consideration, too, would be to dump something and put in Bribery, but I think that it's a difficult choice, because there's all these cards that we pretty much need, and then all these ones we pretty much need, and then these 2 are, like, the flex options, but if we put in a Bribery for 8, then we have to downgrade this, and I don't even think it plays for as much points. It feels kind of bad doing it that way, so it's a tough spot with these upper nerfs to fit all that, and I think that this was definitely warranted, because if we could fit all this and throw a Bribery in here, it would just be absolutely broken. I don't even know if I want to play. And so that's pretty much it. We'll get into the games here. I'll be doing post-game commentary for these ones here. The games are already played, but you'll kind of understand what was going through my mind and what sort of lines to take in certain matchups by the end of the video. And if you enjoy the content that you see today, don't forget to sub to the channel. And we are pushing for 5K subs, and I'm really hoping to get there before the end of February. And for the last couple days, there's been like a little bit of crackling sound on my mic. I ordered a new XLR cable, and I'm really hoping that that's going to solve the issue. And also another stand that's going to be on the way, so I can put back my other mic as well, my better mic. So a couple little upgrades there, but I'm trying to keep things rolling until then, so hopefully it's not too big of a deal. Let's get into the games. And for the first game here we have Syndicate Jackpot. And I'm feeling pretty confident because lately I've been experimenting a lot with different types of decks, and sometimes I'll go into this matchup and it'll feel like a little bit of a disadvantage, but because we're playing this deck, I find that we could win this game quite easily if we don't make any mistakes. So far, the hand's not looking too bad. We have a lot that we can spend. I didn't opt to cycle back the second assassin because I'm going to do that at the end of the round. As far as the mulligans, I just wanted to get rid of one of the illusionists as well because I don't want to have both. So that was kind of the idea. I don't think we're going to play illusionist round 1 either way, or at least try to avoid to. And I'm anticipating some sort of removal at the end of the day for Glynis, so I opted to start with Glynis here. We can proc Glynis a couple times, but if they have poison or something like that, then I don't really want it to get super tall in round 3, and then we just lose it at the end of the round. So and there's no harm in taking a Blightmaker here. So we got the ping I was looking for, and should they spend any coin on this next turn, then we can go ahead and try and remove that with one of the assassins. It works quite well as well because we get rid of the beggar, and surely we get exactly what we're looking for. There was a slight consideration to high roll the Vigo there to get that online to make another one, but it's not guaranteed, so I just wanted to play the one that we had from hand. And so far we're doing alright. I figure we just play this here because we have space. That's really not all too bad. They go up to like 20 points on the Jackal. If we're going to remove it, we have to do it soon. So I'm deciding if I want to take Yen here because obviously we're going to get pretty good Yens in this matchup. But this one just feels pretty good. 20 point plus. We wouldn't want to really play Jackal, but
you will not regret this, good sir.
It's going to be the emissary rather, in this case. Leaving the option open if we want to take them bonded, but it's one of those things where I think if they spend a little bit more on Jackal, we take Yen, or if they play into the turn, we take Yen, and sure enough, they just go up to a point where they can't get back from. And I'm feeling pretty confident that if we take Yen on the 22-point Jackal, then they probably have to give us the round. So that feels pretty good. Otherwise, they might have to go like full leader or something like crazy, or use the Cobb swing, and sure enough, here we see something. And that's just fine. Literally, all their coin doesn't get them ahead. They gotta go and spend. And the good part about it here is that we put ourselves in a position where they have nothing left. And I think we have room to still play Calviet, right? So now they're going to have to like cycle up more coin to spend, and we're just kind of hanging out. Obviously, playing this deep in the round, I'm a little bit of me is regretting like holding on to the mage, but I don't think they ever like I don't think we'd ever want to play the second illusionist anyways in round 1. I say that while I take it. I guess I decided at the time that Siggy was good. We do take leader here, okay. I gotta trust my instincts. So playing it turn by turn, yeah, that just looks fine. So now we're top decking pretty well, so Terra Nova's gonna be coming out first. And then Sprathens and Heatwave, yeah. So then we can pull back the mage. Get the Q. I don't know if I love Q right here at least. Just because it forces us to go tall. I think Lydia is probably a bit more flexible. And I don't think we can ever 2-0, but I do think that it's worth pushing. And we know that they have Heatwave in hand, which is like really valuable information, so this actually prevents me from taking the Brathens with an Emissary as an opener. I was contemplating it, but then... And we don't want to put the Mage Assassin down on an empty board, because that's going to be our setup for Terra Nova. So I just roll this here, just hoping for something like that. That works out quite well. Fill the roll up a little bit, maybe put Spying on something, and then use the Mushy Truffle while we can, and just maybe get out of the round in this case. I decide that we just go here and put that, because worst case, we get some coin, we can copy a spender, and that should be okay. We'll at least set ourselves up with an option going into round 3. And seeing that we're up by 10 points, I think it's just worth it to pass here. Yeah, I'm just thinking back to that round 1. I'm actually happy with the play in that. Pushing it, I think, was the right answer, because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten these commitments here. If we gave them an extra card to work with, then we couldn't have, like, literally went into round 3 after wasting a few of their gold cards and then have a card advantage as well. So, I don't know if it would cost us the game, but I think that doing it this way secures us the game. And that's pretty important. So if we take a mulligan, we're pulling into the mage. I think it's probably worth it to do that. Oh yeah, because we mulliganed it back. But the mage should be there, right? And that's just pretty good. I don't think we want to look for a coup here, because there's a good chance that the best thing we could do is make an emissary, and then we know they have the Heatwave. So playing out of that super tall is important for me. Which is why you'd see me make the copy of the unit opposed to taking the emissary here, even if it appears to be more points. It also kind of sets up the Shelmar, which is nice. It's not like an overwhelming amount of boost we'll get off in this game, but it's decent. And this seems to be the good concrete line of play here, is making a copy of that Frightener, because the free 12 points off the Terra Nova is really hard to deny. And Cobb from hand helps our case a little bit more, right? I'm trying to decide if it's bait. I think I actually take Heatwave on the 12 because they've spent Siggy. So that's what I'm sort of contemplating right now, is do we want to remove the spender, or do we just want to remove the tallest unit? And I think that this is just fine. And see, then their Heatwave is only worth 6 points, and this is for you guys.
Gotcha, puppy.
Just to show you. Oops, phone's going off. But yeah, if you're wondering, that game wasn't very close. And next up we got Onslaught here. So I have 2 games against Onslaught today. This one's going to be the non-devotion one, and then the last game of the day is going to be the devotion one. And it feels like pirates have been very popular right now in the ladder. So this will be a good reference point. We don't have proactivity. I don't like to play Blightmakers on an empty board, so I opt to basically just take the Calvi at first. But usually when I go and take that play, it means like we have to win round 1. So I kind of want to contest it, because I don't want to be bled out of good cards in round 2. I know Skellige doesn't really like to bleed, but at the same time, so we want to get some Assimilate down. I'm just trying to decide how we're going to go about it first. We don't really have a way to remove the card.
The senses can be fooled easily.
And I'm not really a huge fan of taking Blightmakers with Vigo, because we always end up with a card we can't play. And I know if we Calvi here, then we have access to the second Blightmaker anyways. So that's why I opt not to go and take that one here. We just get the first spying out, so we have a target, and then we can sort of pivot. If we find a better target, we have the second one in hand. And so they drew well. They have their engines established here. It's a little bit more difficult for us. We're going to have to make a commitment if we want to either get out of the round or win the round. So we got to start turning up here and getting down some units. We're not really up by a whole lot, but having at least 2, well 3 engines in this case up there is pretty good. We do have a little bit more of a push with the Blightmaker, which is great. And I decided to take a roll here because we have Assimilate out. We might as well try and get some value from it first. And the card on the left here seems to be actually a pretty good fit, because we're going to be able to give armor to that boat that's hurt, right? And then it kind of acts as an engine, so they can't just use a leader charge or something, or a gutting slash and remove it, which is actually pretty nice. We can just beef it up a little bit more here. It's still a perfect gutting slash, but next turn it won't be. Who would have been pretty nice in this round as well. Having 2 of the boats really gives us a bit more control of the round, but we'll see how it goes here. I don't think that they're going to want to have a round 1 sunset. So I was thinking that they're probably just going to play a little bit more and leave if they can't win, but... So the Blightmaker's probably the last good push we have here before it's a little bit heavier commitments, like the Heatwave. Hammond's not a bad thing to copy. Like, I wouldn't mind giving it spying, but... So it's one of those things, if... Well, now we're trapped. They saw it too. You know, with the leader charge there, if we're going to pass, it's going to be here, right? If they didn't use the leader charge, then I would probably pass, given that they'd have to play another card. But, it's tough. Emissary's not bad, right? Boost something that was low power, and then we could try and do this whole let's get out of the round thing again. When I see the leader commitment like that, and I see Sunset moving to the rightmost, then it makes me feel like, okay, they might actually pass. But a big thing is seeing that leader early, seeing the trade of a couple gold cards. I'd say ours was a little bit more expensive of a round, but... And sure enough, we get the pass. It's one thing I don't understand, is that a lot of times Sunset will want to... they want to push in round 1, but then the card sort of forces them to pass. And I just think that if you like to abuse the coin that way, then maybe Sunset wouldn't be the best card for it. Which is normally why... in a lot of these control decks, I don't tend to run Sunset. And that should be fine. We played a lot of the Assimilate, well, not the Assimilate, but the, like, just the Brathens and the Artorias, like, the Create in place. And I felt like we don't really need Q as much here in round 2. So I feel pretty comfortable trying to bleed out a couple cards here. If I can get Sunset out in round 2, that'd be perfect. We prevent them from getting the carryover, so we have the means to kind of do that, right? Lydia's a really good push. Okay. At least they didn't snipe, but that's kind of awkward, isn't it? At least the leader's out of the way. I'm trying to decide if I want to do Terra Nova into another boat and just make it a little bit more awkward, but if I take a pass here, which is probably the right thing to do, then Sunset comes out anyways, and we actually get that carryover from the Mushy Truffle. So I think mission accomplished. Leader's out of the way. Sunset's out of the way. Now we both have trading truffles, and we have our leader. So we should get something pretty good off that if we can pull it at the right time. It's like a mid to long round, so if we can roll around 5, we should be okay. And I think that's the hand. I don't love Q in this matchup because of all the armor. And even if we're to replace something like one of the raiders or whatever the case that we gave spying to, we still have to Q it. And it's not as much points as maybe something from our own deck at that point. With the amount of Assimilate we have, at least. I don't think Glynis is gonna stick here, though. And a lot of you guys were asking the other day why I didn't put Crack into my Pirates deck. It's for this reason exactly. When you have to build up the bronze end to support it, a lot of times I've been seeing a lot of opponents include cards that maybe they wouldn't normally play just for the tags, to have more boats, have more pirates in the bronze end, and then if Crack gets removed, then it's not really great. In my specific version, I only had the invaders and the raiders in the bronze end that were pirates.
You do the Emperor proud. Oh.
What's nice about the Glynis here is that no one uses Stunning Blow really right now, so it makes a pretty big difference. And we get Fukusha early, which is fine because we can go and we can give that spying and set up a good Terra Nova. And I start playing on the range row because the rain, we can stack that row instead. 4 turns of rain's quite a bit. You see, even if we had Q, we lost it there. The power attack, once you see it's non-devotion, pretty much anything's up in the air. So
Sacrifices must be made on both sides.
You're sailing into cliffs just to rail me now.
I don't mind the play. I would have maybe put armor on the Glynis, but the only thing is a lot of times they're going to be running a Heatwave or a Morkvarg, right? So, and now we can even see they have a Heatwave. So it's probably not the best idea, but it would save a point or two from rain for the time being. And I Heatwave the boat because it'll get the most value based on what we see on the board right now. I don't think that was the right Heatwave. I guess they figure the rain's on the front row anyways. Maybe they have something to damage it regardless. And we'll just go take the Thin. Hopefully we hit something on the front row, but not. There we go, perfect. And so this game's kind of getting away from them, right? We have a Heatwave that we're probably going to put on the 7 there. Or if they play like a King Bran, something like that, right? Ah, okay. That was the play.
Please, pay no heed to my face.
I figured that it would just be more points to roll, and sure enough, we pull that beautiful play off, and then we just throw some armor here. I think that's fine. And that just ends it for the game. I don't think it was very close. Shelmar played for a lot of points. We had Truffle, we had a Heatwave, so they would have had something they would have boosted, which would have made the Heatwave even better. Now, moving on to the next game, here we have Carapace. It's going to be Kelly in this case. Not a great round one hand. It's like a lot of expensive cards.
Great sacrifice.
Which is not all bad. Like, if I play cards like Glynis here, and she happens to be one of the taller units we play, then we can get her back later, which is really good. We just have a lot of 5s, which is the problem.
You will not regret this.
So we can't really give it Spine because the Veil,
Please wait, Your Excellency. I'm falling behind.
and we don't really want to play into Kelly with keeping that at 3. That's tough. But you see what I mean? Glynis gets one of the biggest removals every time if they can answer it. Otherwise, it's just one of those things you can't remove. So I decided to take Calvi here because I want to be able to pull into my Yen and my Heatwave because I want to be able to get around that Kelly combo. And I'm anticipating that they're going to start rolling out the pieces shortly if they have it. And so if we go into round 2 and they try and recycle the play, then we can answer that right away. This is kind of suspicious though. They're lining up 8s. I don't think at the time I was really paying attention. I think at the time I was thinking, okay, they're just trying to maintain dominance, right? And this is what I'm talking about. I had no idea that Igni would come down here. I've never seen Igni in a Kelly deck.
Portals.
So I don't think this round's winnable just because of that, which is fine, because we're going to be top decking well and then we can answer their problems. We got to pass with 5 cards in this case, but I felt like giving Spying to Igni is important because we can replay that off the Terra Nova and they stack their row behind the defender, so it's going to be one of those things where they're just so used to stacking row, we should have it lined up nicely. The Joust isn't really good for us here. I don't know how much I love Ku, but Ku is actually not too bad if we get around the defender right, so we'll keep it. And normally you'd expect if someone was really pushing to win on even in round 1 that they would push a little bit harder in round 2. But it actually kind of helps us out a little bit here. We're able to get the carryover from Mushy, not have to worry too much, and then we can just deal with the problems. We have all our gold cards too. It's probably the best pull we can have. I don't know if I like Duchess though. I think that's a bit better. And there's a lot of ways we can open, but it's probably going to be just an illusionist. I don't love it here. It's not set up enough. At this point, there'd be an argument to actually take that mulligan and look for something else like a Diplo. Kind of taking a browse here at what they're going to be pulling back. So it's a Parrying Phantom, Beast, Nithral, and Geralt's our only copy with the Assimilate so far. So it's probably going to have to be Geralt. I do have the backup though in hand, just in case we need it. This is what we planned for, right? They boost it up. We take it. They play Kelly. Boost it up, we remove it. So that's a big part of the problem gone. And oftentimes I don't think they expect it because a lot of decks that like are Assimilate are just running Yen. I like the idea of Heatwave in Yen. I think it's fine.
I know the truth.
Now Beast is pretty good because Beast can be a good coup, right? Pretty soon we gotta do something though. We gotta think about leader. I'm kind of worried that we're gonna pull into some bad cards. So I haven't figured out in this case. I'm pretty sure they're running Igni instead of Ciri, and they have Witch's Sabbath instead of Heatwave. So that's probably how it goes.
What a shame I haven't.
If we're being totally correct, I guess, you could put the Emissary on the ranged row just in case they have pigs. But I don't think that it's going to be a problem with them getting Sabbath. I think that it's inevitable and it can't be stopped. Right? Like Lewis. So we'll just focus on the things that we can control, I think, at this point. It would be nice to get the Beast sooner than later because they're getting those 4 points per turn. You gotta respect that, you gotta treat that early on. So we'll go ahead and use that here. And I'm gonna dish for leader just because the hand's getting to that point. Defender's a really good pull, right? This way they can't parasite the Beast or anything like that. They can't spores anything in behind it. I'm feeling pretty confident that way. And we got to split up the rows a little bit because we have some row management issues, right? I don't want to stack everything on melee because we might have to play Lydia on melee. So maybe our Thin goes unranged and Terra Nova goes unranged. Tourney always usually goes unranged, right? Because we aren't playing against Nilfgaard. So that is actually kind of frustrating. The fact that they boosted the pig takes away from a potential Igni that we have, because it's going to go up to 13, right? And so now we're left with those uneven numbers. I wanted, and here I am trying to snipe it one more time, but it just doesn't matter because it's just going to boost by 2 again. So we're probably going to have to take an Igni that's just worth the cost of the pig. But so far, 13 points is really good. And if we play it last, it'll climb up pretty high. And we don't have to worry about the initiative effect either because the 35 points is just fine. They already have more.
A witch's best friend is a pig, no doubt.
And take this in. They've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 passive points per turn that we're dealing against. And we have the 2 off the beast, and then we have 3 assimilate engines. So it's tough. And normally I would have taken the Igni by now, but I'm just looking at it being a potential win condition if we wait. Because if we see 2 units same power, it's all the better, right? And I'm just trying to respect the amount of points they have. But at the same time, obviously we don't get the Assimilate proc on Terran over there with the Lydia. But we can save Mushy Truffle for that anyways. It's kind of an interesting choice with the Vran. I guess because the Kelly, pretty interesting. Go ahead and take that here. And pretty cool interaction I wasn't really thinking of, but I discovered, well, just read into it a bit more in this game. So the Mushy Truffle brings out the Froth. We can actually boost their units with the Froth. So I was trying to see if anything would line up with that, because that could have been like highlight real material, having a few units taken out because we've manipulated their row with our Froth. So if you're running Igni and you have a Mushy Truffle, then keep that in mind. This is what I'm talking about here when I open it up and take a read. So this just does it for us here. There's no coming back from that. And we don't even get to finish. So that's alright. Moving on to the last one here. This one's going to be a Devotion Pirate stack. So this is probably going to be the version that you're going to run into most often. I don't mind Illusionist early if we have means of getting rid of something. So I look at our hand and I see the Mage Infiltrators and the Tourney Joust and the Coup. So that just tells me, okay, well, there's some synergy there, right? So just because you have mulligans doesn't always mean you have to take them.
You do the Emperor proud. Oh.
And I'm telling you, like, I just feel most confident not holding on to Glynis too long in a lot of these games. I think when we overvalue units, then it becomes a problem. I'd love to be able to trade, right, Morkvarg for Glynis early on. Think about it, 10 provision card for our 7 provision card.
And if I insert a needle here, what then?
Just reading some comments in the meantime. We'll get back to the gameplay here. So Coral comes down, we give it spying. I don't mind that at all because we might want to fetch for something else. Coral's pretty nice too. If we yen something, we can basically Coral, chuck a bronze, and go and draw into what we yenned.
Everyone has their secrets. Everyone.
It's a similar interaction as like the Artle play when you give them something back and then we draw a card. I like to do that after a yen as well if we're playing like Onslaught 5. I was thinking about taking the mage there, but at the same time, I kind of want to leave the coup open.
Her grace
I was thinking about taking coup off the Coral there, but kind of want to respect the engines here. Make sure we have more engines. It'll be harder for them to win the round now because look at it. The coup, well, if we go into like mushy and have to play something like that down, it's going to proc a lot of Assimilate, but I don't think we have to go that far in the round. And sure enough, Mork. That trades down quite a bit because it wasn't even really boosted, right? I think we maybe just pop a shield on it. Use it defensively. I don't feel as bad about doing something like that now because they can't directly hit it. And sure enough, we just get the pass. I'm pretty comfortable with that. In this specific matchup, I think we traded quite nice. Maybe even better so than the previous one, right? That's a good hand. So we have 3 and 4. So if I take the Calvi here, we should just be able to pull everything we need to win the game.
I forgive you. This time.
I think they're a little bit panicking here. Seeing Turkvi come down on a throw card, because I didn't really have the intention to keep playing into this, and this really secures it because we're not getting that card back at this point. So at least we go to 10 apiece, we have all our golds, things are good, and we've gotten one more of their expensive cards out of the way. So we have last say, a point slam wouldn't hurt, so tourney's not all that bad. I do think Blightmakers are going to play for quite a bit of points here, and I don't think it's worth tucking them away. That's just a pretty good hand. just showing you guys what we made copies of. That's probably going to be a Heatwave. Because I don't really like replaying that card. It doesn't really do a whole lot for us. So to yen that and draw into it if we take a Coral or something like that doesn't really help. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking, okay, let's get some damage available, and let's start thinking about what the best coup could be. I don't really want to take coup on one of our informants. I think we can do better.
Dead and cold body.
They do use the damage there. I think that would have been a good leader charge, if anything. A lot more appropriate than the first one.
Have you ever laid eyes on a deception of such?
So in this case, we probably take the boat at 1 power. And I have to use the damage. I didn't want to. So I might actually look for another raider later. I just don't want them to use like their leader on it and then get more of a trade up. But ultimately it's going to help us set up the coup if anything. We're not devotion, so we don't want the Skellige. And so they leadered it, right? And so this is why I bring it back here. It's a little bit of a frustrating play. At this point, I'm like, okay, we gotta recomp the hand here. We gotta do something.
Gotcha, puppy.
Fukusha's really nice here. We do have raiders, but we get a lot of rain with the Fukusha. And I don't love the idea of hitting the armor in the back row, so we're going to opt to go for the front row here, I believe.
Sacrifices must be made on both sides.
And this boat, I think, will protect. So things flipped quite well. At this point, I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic about the game. And then now even a little bit better because they help us with more rain value. I want to take this here just so that we don't have as many worries. Blightmaker's probably more points thinking about it here than the coup is. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I think that's fine. The only alternative is waiting long enough for them to play the Fukusha or something like that, and then take the yen, and then take the coral, get it back in hand, and then play it. But if we can't float burn that long, then we don't even get an option of doing that. So, and I think that if they were to see the line of play in sight, they would have just answered it quicker.
It is merely an illusion.
So that's going to be the best option for us here. And so the game is closer than I would have liked it to be, but we keep ourselves out of, like, very vulnerable place. You can imagine if we had a Joachim or something of that sort, how the matchup would be more difficult, I think, because we'd have something so tall. At this point, if they go and they try and get the Morkvark back, they're playing it on the Terra Nova on the back row, and it's not even all that bad. And tourney should be pretty good. We've got 3 units that are not from our faction. I was thinking about taking the day off. However, I might take 1 day off before the season reset. Just so that we come back strong. Because you guys know when there's like a new patch or balance changes, if anything's happening, then sometimes I like to crank out multiple guides in a day and stuff like that. And yeah, that's good. And this game's just one of those ones we should win. It's never a fun time playing into a control deck with not a lot of direct control, but I think we do well with the multiple options that we have for the punish. We got pretty good with the roll on the Fuchsia, and obviously looking at the board state now, last say coup would have been perfect on that, but it's fine. You can't plan for these things exactly. You just look back at them and say, I wish. You know? So they did take the Skjortel, they did take the removal here. That's probably the best play they could have made. And we take 2 here. We win by 1. They played all their cards. I'm just showing you guys here. We'll see you tomorrow with a new one.